The Palm Beach Civic Association expands its communication outreach with a state-of-the-art television studio. We call it Studio 33480, the zip code for the beautiful island of Palm Beach. Sponsored by Finley Galleries, our goal is to bring you in-depth interviews with the most colorful and knowledgeable personalities on the island. And now, our host.
Welcome to Studio 33480. I'm Claudia Shea. Town leaders are requesting your help in protecting some of the island's most important visitors, endangered sea turtles. The Palm Beach shoreline is currently home to an abundance of sea turtle nests, but the problem is residential and commercial lighting often confuses hatchlings as they emerge from nests and then attempt to make their way back into the sea. Our guest today is Christine Perretta of DB Ecological Services. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Chris, before we begin, can you give us a little bit of background about what it means to be the town's turtle monitor and what your team does?
Sure, absolutely. My company, we're an environmental consulting firm. We primarily specialize in sea turtle work. We have worked with the town of Palm Beach for several decades now. My team, on a daily basis, we start March 1st, sometimes prior to that, at the beginning of sea turtle season, and we do daily nesting surveys throughout the town. Sometimes we do it on foot, sometimes we use an ATV, depending on the area and the conditions. So we start every day, we look for sea turtle tracks in the sand. We identify the species of the turtle, whether it nested or did not nest, collect several data points. And we carry that throughout the season. We mark a small percentage of nests to obtain hatch success data for the state of Florida. We provide all the information back at the end of season after October 31st.
And the Fish and Wildlife Services, they're the ones who make the rules.
That's correct, yeah. The Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service both dictate rules on sea turtle activities.
So what are you seeing this year as you monitor the beaches as far as the number of nests and then also the types of turtles that come ashore here?
Well, we get a variety of species in the town of Palm Beach. We get the early nesters, which are leatherback sea turtles. Those are the largest of all the sea turtles that we get. We also get loggerhead sea turtles. They nest in abundance here in the town. And then we also get green sea turtles. And on a rare occasion, we may get a hawksbill sea turtle nesting. That would be a very rare, exciting occurrence for us. But this year has been, the numbers of nests have really been astronomical. It's going to be one of the highest years on record in Florida for sea turtle activity and nesting.
So it's important for us all to be especially careful. Let's talk about the season, the sea turtle season, from the time when the adults emerge from the ocean to the time when the hatchlings come up from the nest and try to make their way back to the sea. When does that run?
The official sea turtle season in Palm Beach begins March 1st and goes through October 31st. So the reason our season here in southern Florida starts so early is we get a fairly significant number of leatherback sea turtles. Those are the largest sea turtles that we have. They can weigh upwards of a ton. They are massive. It looks like a small vehicle has come out of the ocean when they come up to nest. They nest early. They come up usually in February and March. So that's why our season begins, March 1st here in southeast Florida, and extends completely through October 31st. That usually takes us beyond, the green sea turtles tend to nest later in the season, so that takes us beyond the finishing point for most of the green sea turtle nesting. However, the last few years, the green turtles have continued to nest into November and some even into early December. So it's really kind of extended the season out, but the official season is March 1st till October 31st.
The town has an ordinance in place to protect the sea turtles, especially as it pertains to lighting. Can you talk to us a little bit about the ordinance?
The town has an ordinance to diminish lighting on beaches. Code enforcement folks that work through the police department do an excellent job of, identifying lights and enforcing that lighting ordinance. So that's all done primarily through the police department and code enforcement activities. We assist by doing some nighttime lighting surveys, and we provide that information back to those folks so that they can make contact with residents and take appropriate action to get those lights off.
Now, this isn't a frivolous rule. It's not really an inconvenience. There are ways to protect our citizens, but also protect the sea turtles. Let's talk for a minute about the hatchlings, which are, at this point, pretty much the turtles have laid their eggs, and now this is the point where the hatchlings are making their way to the sea.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about examples about when hatchlings are disoriented. What are indications to you and your team when you look at the beach that this has happened, that they have been disoriented?
Hatchlings they leave a cone in the sand, a cone of activity of how the tracks proceed from the nest to the ocean. It usually fans out, it looks like an ice cream cone if you stand at the top and look at it going toward the ocean. That's what a normal hatchling emergence would look like. They should make their way from the nest to the ocean relatively quickly. When we see misoriented or disoriented hatchlings, we see circular tracks. We see tracks that extend sometimes several thousand feet running parallel to the dune, either north or south, up and down the beach. There are tracks that go westward instead of eastward, different things like that we look for. And then we record those incidents and provide that information back to the state and the town as well, so that the code enforcement folks can use that additionally to track down lights that may have caused that activity to occur.
You even see them in people's pools and in their yards and in the road?
Yes, sometimes that does happen. We see them in swimming pools. We get calls about that. We go and collect them from those folks. They do get into the road on occasion. It's not good.
That's really sad. So the reason for this is now they're looking for the brightest spot, which would normally be the ocean with the moon and the stars reflecting off of it. So when they see the lights, what happens?
The lightest, brightest horizon on a natural beach should be the ocean. The celestial light from stars, from the moon, that illuminating off the ocean is a very strong cue that hatchlings use to do that sea finding activity that they have. When we have highly developed coastlines like we have all throughout southeast Florida and much of Florida, the brightest horizon has become westward, west of the dune. And because lighting is such a strong cue that hatchlings use for the sea finding ability, it makes them go in the opposite direction. They cue in on those lights that they see, either directly or indirectly, and they head the opposite way. That's where these lighting ordinances and people helping out by reducing illumination or turning off lights they don't need, things of that nature, are really helpful to correct that and make the brightest horizon again to the east so that hatchlings can find their way to the sea.
You mentioned directly and indirectly. There's indirect and direct lighting. What is the difference?
In talking about sea turtle lighting, it's really important for us to mention that there should never be a position where personal safety or public safety is at a detriment to aid in marine turtle activities or protecting sea turtles. That is a non-starter. Nobody is going to want that. Nobody wants to put somebody in jeopardy of tripping and falling or anything like that in order to protect sea turtles. So that being said, I have never, in over 35 years of working with these animals, I have never seen where there hasn't been a solution to a public safety or a lighting issue that hasn't been able to be met that also helps sea turtles. Direct lighting would be a point source light, say a floodlight or something attached to somebody's house that is illuminating directly out into the beach. So if you walked out and stood on the beach, it would be pretty much visible to you, hitting you right in the face. Indirect lighting would be things like landscape lighting, where people have lights around their residence that are pointing up into the sky and illuminating possibly the building, illuminating the trees, again, causing that glow that sea turtles naturally should see over the ocean, but now they're seeing that glow over land, and it drives them in the wrong direction.
What about wildlife safe lights? Do they exist? How do you find out about them? What can you use?
Yes, so there are wildlife safe lights. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has a program that they have called Wildlife Certification. So they have these wildlife certified lights. You can find it on their webpage. And essentially there's three components to less disruptive lighting for sea turtles. All lighting is disruptive for sea turtles, but wildlife-friendly lighting is the least disruptive of all lights. So there's kind of three different things that we use. We say keep it low, meaning keep the light low in position, down where you need it. Keep it low wattage, that the minimum wattage that you need. Don't put a huge bulb in there if you only need a low wattage bulb. And then keep it long, meaning keep the wavelength of the bulb long, something 560 nanometers or greater. All that means is it's more visible in the higher end of the spectrum, the visible spectrum. So it would be red, amber, orange, in that color scheme. And then also to shield lights. Shield them where you can so that they're not visible from the beach, but you're keeping the light where you need it around your home.
That makes sense. Okay, lighting is very important, but it's not the only detriment when it comes to these hatchlings trying to make their way back to the sea. Talk to us about what we can all do as beachgoers to not get in their way.
With increased temperatures and things that are happening just in the earth in general, sea turtles have had a tendency over the last few years to emerge throughout the day, not just at night like they typically would. So we're seeing a lot more daytime emergences. So if you're fortunate enough to be on the beach when that occurs, please just give them space. There's millions of years of evolution that is at work here, so they know what they're doing. Just watch them from a distance, enjoy what you're seeing, but please do not intervene in their process. It is hugely important to them and their survivability. So please just, again, watch at a distance, enjoy it, but do not intervene, do not touch them. If you have any concerns, you can always call the Wildlife Alert number or call the Palm Beach Police Department. They will get in touch with us and we can go out there and check it out if need be. In addition to that, if you have objects on the beach that you don't need to have out there, if you've been using a tent for a day, like a beach cabana tent or chairs, please take those back off of the beach at night. Put them up at the Toa Dune area or take them off the beach entirely. Don't leave ruts and holes on the beach. Try to leave the beach as you found it when you arrived.
Yeah, the odds are against them making it into the ocean successfully as it is. They don't need us to get in the way.
Indeed.
Okay, and then just a really quick science lesson for all of us. Besides being magnificent creatures who have been around for millions and millions of years, what is the environmental role that they play in protecting our oceans?
Sea turtles are like a keystone species. People probably hear that terminology quite a bit. But we, as scientists, watch these population trends. FWC has some of the finest scientists in the world watching these population trends of sea turtles. And if sea turtles are trending down, then that's bad news for the ocean health in general and bad news for us in general. So there are extremely smart people doing very good science and tracking these animals and watching their populations. But we definitely are concerned about numbers. This year we've had a hugely successful nesting season. We hope that continues. But, one really successful nesting season doesn't make the protection of these sea turtles go away. We need to continue that effort, and hopefully we'll see those numbers continue to rise.
Well, thank you so much for sharing information that will help us all do our part in helping them make their way safely back into the ocean.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. And thank you so much for tuning in to Studio 33480. We'll see you next time.
Studio 33480 is brought to you by the Palm Beach Civic Association, our sponsor, Finley Galleries, and our viewers. We welcome your thoughts on how our programming can best serve our members and residents.